Hello, welcome to Red Sports Talk. My name is Zach. We've officially made it through week 4 of the UFL season, meaning we have made it through one full month of the 2026 UFL regular season. Now, in week 4, I took a little bit of a step back with my picks. I went 2-2, giving me an overall record of 9-7 on the season. Now we're about to kick off week 5, and after this week, we will officially be halfway through the UFL regular season. Now, week 5 kicks off this Friday night, April 24th, at 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox, as the DC Defenders, who are 3-1, take on the Birmingham Stallions, who are 1-3. DC is coming off of a victory over the St. Louis Battlehawks. Birmingham coming off of a loss to the Orlando Storm. And actually, after that loss earlier this week, Birmingham traded who had been their starting quarterback, Matt Corral, and defensive lineman Amani Bledsoe to the Orlando Storm for their quarterback, who had been their backup to start the season, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. This is a move that I think was needed for Birmingham, as Matt Corral, as talented as he has been, has had his struggles, and this offense as a whole struggled scoring 0 points this past week against Orlando. So now they bring in a very talented quarterback in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. It's unclear as to whether or not he will start based off of talent and I think potential in that QB room. I personally think he should be the starter for this game, but only 1 week to be there going against a very good DC Defenders defense. It's yet to be seen. So, kind of talked about a little bit this past week how Birmingham got shut out. It was the first shutout in regular season history of the UFL. Now, for the DC Defenders, they are coming off of a very close competitive victory over the Battlehawks, in which Jordan Teamu finally looked like he has the past few seasons. He looked very good, not just throwing the ball at a good game, but was their leading rusher. Was very good at picking up first downs with his legs. Just looked, very talented and kind of played up to the potential and the level that UFL fans are used to seeing him play to. Now, my pick for this game, I'm going to go with the DC Defenders. Not only is it Birmingham having changeover at quarterback, whether it is Dorian Thompson-Robinson or whatever other quarterback they have on the roster, but overall, I just think DC right now is playing much better football than Birmingham. Birmingham has had its struggles, and DC is really starting to get into a groove. Jordan Teamu, if he can stay, build off of what he did last week, and I really like what this offense can do in the passing game, the running game. They still have a very good running game with Deion Jackson and Abram Smith. They're two very talented running backs. Defensively, they're playing very good defense. They were pressuring Harrison Frost of St. Louis this past week. They held him to a very poor overall performance. Did a very good job against St. Louis overall defensively. And I think that that will be one of the key difference makers in this game, is their ability to disrupt the quarterback for Birmingham. Birmingham has also struggled a little bit in the run game with Snoop Connor and Anthony McFarland. So I think DC can kind of, again, disrupt their running game, can, put up points on offense, can play very good defense. I think the DC gets the victory over Birmingham. Next game is Saturday, April 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can catch that on ESPN, as the St. Louis Battlehawks, who are 2-2, take on the Orlando Storm, who are 4-0. St. Louis coming off of that loss to the DC Defenders. Orlando coming off of that victory over Birmingham, that shutout victory. So St. Louis, another team that has actually made a trade. They traded for the Spring King himself, quarterback Luis Perez, from the Dallas Renegades. He is now coming in to St. Louis. I don't know at this time whether or not he will start on Saturday. Um, depends on, I'm assuming, depends on how quickly he can pick up the offense, how comfortable he is throughout the week. But I can't imagine that if he were to start, he would play much worse than Harrison Frost did this past week. As Harrison Frost only completed 6 passes against the DC Defenders. Now, he did have 2 touchdowns, but those were to Hakeem Butler, and one of them was pretty much entirely Hakeem Butler catching essentially a quick screen and taking it 75 yards to the house for a touchdown. Now, for Orlando, their defense played tremendous against Birmingham. Their offense did have struggles. It was a shutout. It was on paper a dominant victory, but they only put up 16 points. So that's, you're not going to hold a whole lot of teams in the UFL to less than 16 points. They do have something to build off of there. This is actually a revenge game for their head coach, Anthony Beck, who is the former head coach of the St. Louis Battlehawks before taking over for Orlando this season. This one, I think, is a very difficult game to pick. I think this will be a very close, competitive game. I am going to go with the Battlehawks to get the victory. And as good as Orlando has been, obviously they're undefeated. Their offense has been clicking at times, but I really like this St. Louis defense specifically to get after Jack Plummer, to be able to slow down their run game of Deshaun Corbin, to kind of slow down their receivers. But I think that they can really get pressure off on Jack Plummer and make him make some mistakes that can be some key difference makers in this game. Their defense has made a ton of plays this season to help keep them in games. And their 2 victories, their week 1 victory over the Defenders and their victory in week 3 over the Birmingham Stallions. Their defense stepped up big in both of those games to help turn the momentum for them. I can very much imagine that they would do that, that they could do that again this week. Offensively for St. Louis, I don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be, but whether it's Luis Perez, whether it is Harrison Frost starting this game, I do like the offensive pieces that they have around them, specifically Hakeem Butler, who's coming off of back-to-back multiple touchdown games. Jarvion Howard is finally starting to hit his stride in the run game. He had coming off his best rushing performance of the season so far with 85 rushing yards. This offense is really starting to get things together as long as their quarterback can come in and play efficient football. I do think that the St. Louis Battlehawks get the victory over the Orlando Storm. Moving on to Sunday, April 26th at noon Eastern on ABC, the Columbus Aviators, who are 1-3, take on the Houston Gamblers, who are also 1-3. Columbus coming off of their first victory of the season over the Dallas Renegades, and then Houston coming off of an overtime loss to the Louisville Kings. This is Columbus this past weekend really found a way to win. They had a great rushing performance with really all 3 of their, 3-headed monsters, with Lovett leading the charge, being their leading rusher. But Zaquandre White and Toa Tawa both had rushing touchdowns. They ran the ball 47 times on offense. They played very good defense, held Austin Reed to one of his worst performances of the season, which they did a good job. They played Dallas back-to-back weeks, and they did a very good job of containing Austin Reed. And then this week they were finally able to match offensively what their defense was doing against Dallas. And for Houston, they continue to struggle. They'll continue to have quarterback woes with whoever they really throw out there. With Nolan Henderson went again this past weekend. Their offense, not really great. Their defense, they were one of a defense that I thought was going to be one of the better defenses in the UFL this year. They've had their struggles. They did have a pretty good game in the rushing attack, but overall not enough to get the victory. I do think my pick for this game. I do think that Columbus gets the victory here. I think that their running game is much better. I think they are going to be able to run the ball on this Houston defense. I think that Jalen McClendon, if he can play efficient football, control the ball, he can, very athletic. He can run the ball. He can run as well. He's got a very good arm. And then defensively, this Columbus Aviators defense is a very talented defense. They've actually been able to make good plays in most of their games, but they have just fallen just short. But this week, I think they get their second win in a row, and they get the victory over the Houston Gamblers. Your final game of the weekend takes place also on Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern on ABC, as the Louisville Kings, who are 1-3, take on the Dallas Renegades, who are 3-1. Louisville coming off their first victory of the season when they're in that overtime victory over the Houston Gamblers. Dallas coming off of their first loss of the season to Columbus. Louisville, even after a victory, did a little bit of cleaning house. They traded quarterback Jason Bean to the DC Defenders in exchange for their backup quarterback. They cut running back Benny Snell. They also cut their starting left tackle and their starting left guards. They're really trying to clean house up front, make a change at quarterback, make a swap at running back. Right now, it looks like quarterback Chandler Rogers, who is set to start, and I would imagine that in the running game, it's most likely going to be James Robinson and Ian Wheeler splitting carries in the run game. Not sure how this offense is really going to look this week. Chandler Rogers did get some playing time in week 2, in which he played decent. I believe he had a little over 50% completions. I want to say it was like 15 or 13 of 21 completions. So not great, but not terrible. Remains to be seen what he can do. He seems like a very talented, athletic quarterback. And the running game has really been a struggle for them. Thus, getting rid of Benny Snell. But even, this past week, in which, James Robinson was one of their 2 lead backs, he didn't really do a whole lot. He had a rushing touchdown, but he didn't really do a whole lot else overall. So I'm very concerned for this running game. And for Dallas, they're coming off of their worst offensive performance of the season. They only had 2 touchdowns. Austin Reed, held to one of his worst games. He did have 2 passing touchdowns, but their running game couldn't really get anything going. Columbus, was able to really control the clock and, grind them down. Dallas was also coming off of playing 3 games in 11 days, so their defense was really worn down in that game, and Columbus took advantage of it. Now they have, had a little bit of like an extra day of rest this week, which I think will be a big help for them. My pick for this game is going to be the Dallas Renegades. I just think their offense is still tremendously talented. Austin Reed can still find ways to put points up on the board. Hopefully, Day Hunter can get more going in the running game and really help out the offense there, but give them an extra dimension on offense. Obviously, in the passing game, I mentioned Austin Reed. They're still going to find ways to put some points up on the board. Tyler Vaughn, you can only contain him for so long. And defensively, they've had some extra rest. They are a very talented defense. They're good at getting takeaways. I think they're probably able to get some takeaways from Chandler Rogers getting his first start. I think they can make him make some mistakes. Get after him a little bit, as this defense has been very good this season. Has been getting a lot of turnovers, which has really helped their offense. I think that they can do more of that this week. So I do think that the Dallas Renegades get the victory over Louisville this week. Let me know in the comments who you have winning. Let me know in the comments who you guys have winning this week. Let me know what you thought of the first month of the season. If you're excited for the second half of the season, as teams really start to make, a push for the playoffs. As it stands right now, the top 4 teams. So there's no more divisions in the UFL. So right now it's just top 4 teams make it to the playoffs. If the season ended, now that would be the Defenders, the Defenders, the Renegades, the Storm, and Battlehawks. We know how you think that changes throughout the season, or if those are the 4 teams that you think push through and make it all the way to the playoffs. As always, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Till next time.